How you guys doing? This is Neil from growpotcheaper.com. In this video, we're going to learn a little bit about LEDs. We're going to learn about new tech and old tech. We're going to go in the same order the guy presented his video in to dismantle the disinformation about LED lights. The first topic we'll go through is the spectrum when it concerns old tech versus new tech. We'll also go through the hardware with old tech versus new tech. Part of that will include heat of the light, the heat that the light actually produces. And then finally, we'll go through the coverage area. My light actually covers 8 by 4, by the way, very easily. That's 8 feet by 4 feet. It's made to work like a gavita, and I use it like a gavita, and that's why it covers that much area. I'll show you how. I also have another video already made that I'll be posting up on my website on the sales page for the Perfect Sun 1000. All right, let's get started. Guys, so I know this video is long, so first I'm going to give you a quick overview of everything that's going to be in the video. So if you don't want to watch the whole thing, you'll get the gist of everything that's being said in the video. If you want more details, just watch the whole video. So in short, he says that old tech versus new tech versus spectrum. So in short, with spectrum, you look at his spectrum here, it's not truly full spectrum. That's from his own video right here. It's not true full spectrum. It's missing a lot of that deep red. It's missing pretty much all of the deeper blue and a lot of the lighter blue. It has way too much green and yellow and way too much orange, hardly any IR, and like no UV. That's why it just drops off completely. Mine has all that. It has the UV, has the infrared, has the deep reds, has the deep blues, has lighter blues, and you can see my spectrum. And you just keep watching, and you'll see my spectrum in just a second. I'll show it side by side with this spectrum. You'll see that. But anyway, so new tech, he says that white LEDs. Now his new tech here is right here, or right here. This is his new tech. It's just a warm LED. Notice it's pretty much identical looking to his spectrum. Just stretch it out, make it a little bit taller because his image is taller, but the spectrum itself is the same, right? It's just warm LEDs. That's all it is. Warm white LEDs, right? Not cool. This is cool white. This is warm white. He probably adds a little bit of cool in there, but notice very thin blue spectrum. Hardly any of that deep red spectrum in there. You need that deep red in there. Also no UV. You see there's no UV in there, or very, very little of it. That's because the white LEDs don't produce much UV. You need an actual special UV diode, which are a lot more expensive than whites. All right, so that's the basic thing. So first, old spec versus new. He doesn't, when he talks about the old in his video here, or excuse me, his new video here, when he talks about old tech versus new when it comes to spectrum, he doesn't address my spectrum. Why? Because he knows my spectrum is truly full spectrum. It has everything in there. It has plenty of it. And just stay tuned. You'll see that in a second. All right, so let's get a briefing on the second point he makes is hardware. And the hardware, he's like, okay, look at no moving parts. By the way, this is here. Look at the price. Anyway, all the same technology. IP65 rating. It's a high bay light, 450 watt light. It uses the high-powered Cree LEDs, uses power supply Meanwell, and it's not waterproof, it's actually water resistant. Keep watching the video if you want more information on that. I go through all that in quite great detail, what IP rating means, what the first number means, what the second number means, all that kind of stuff. But in short, basically he's saying that, hey, look at, my light doesn't produce that much heat, all these other lights do. Really? So if this light doesn't produce that much heat, why does it need such a huge heat sink on top? Now I talk about all this in great detail throughout the video, so if you're interested in that, keep watching. But basically that big fat fucking heat sink on there, that big chunk of aluminum, that's your heat sink. Right here, this is your tiny little chipboard. It's like 5 times bigger, 10 times bigger than that tiny little chipboard, right? I mean, it's huge. It's gigantic. It takes up, look at that, it takes up the bulk of the light. The only other object that takes up more bulk or just as much bulk as the light is the lens itself. You take that lens off, that's the bulk of your light right there. The heat sink. So the heat sink is removing all that heat away from the light. Now, because there's airflow in the room, the heat is dissipated and the aluminum stays cool, and therefore when the aluminum stays cool, it does its job and it pulls the heat away from your board. Simple as that. The other point he made was with the tech was what about moving parts that can fail? Well, the reason why the high bay lights, these are made for stadiums, something like football stadiums, to light up football players while they're playing football and stuff. And that's why they have the spotlight thing. I go through all this in more detail. Don't worry about it. If you want all the details, just watch the whole entire video. But anyway, so notice it has the same kind of hanging bar as my light. I go through my other lights that also use the Meanwell drivers. They use the exact same IP65 Meanwell drivers, my other XL version. And why I chose not to do that for the indoor light, because it's unnecessary. I go through all the details about that. But one thing he mentioned also when it came to the tech of things, just to briefly give an overview of here, is that he was saying something about, oh, these things are a fire hazard, these old lights. Not my light in particular, but he's just talking about older lights that have the style of fans. Basically, he's saying that old tech is any
any light that has a fan on it. Actually, that's still new tech. Now, what makes a difference here is I have this separating bar, this piece of aluminum here, this big, thick piece of aluminum. First off, my whole light is aluminum, everything. All this aluminum, every little bracket's aluminum. The screws aren't aluminum because aluminum screws would be kind of dumb because it's not strong enough of a metal to work as a screw. This even piece right here is aluminum. This piece here is not aluminum. Why? Because aluminum's too soft of a metal. This needs to hold a lot of weight, therefore it needs to be a strong metal, like steel. Anyway, and that's what it is, steel, not iron. But anyway, that way it doesn't corrode and rust and things like that. But anyway, so the main difference though between this and an older light is that newer lights have a automatic shutoff, just like newer PCs have automatic shutoff. If for whatever reason your heat sink stops working in your computer and pulling the heat away from your CPU, the computer knows that the CPU is getting too hot and it shuts itself off. If you notice that happening, like you're turning the computer back on and it keeps shutting itself off, it's because it's getting too hot. So you need more airflow. You need to check your fans, make sure they're all working, clean them out, clean out the vents in your computer, make sure the airflow is flowing through there correctly. Because if the airflow is not flowing through your computer correctly, then it's not keeping the inside of the computer box cool enough for the heatsink to do its job. Right? When that aluminum gets too warm and stays warm, it's less efficient at pulling the heat away from the CPU. Same thing with the chipboard for your LEDs. Well, this has the same technology built into it as a computer. That is, when this light, when LEDs can start failing on you is when they reach about 150 degrees, 160 degrees. Once they reach that temperature, that's Fahrenheit. Once they reach that temperature, then they can start failing. You can get panels going out, things like that. So in older technology, what would happen is they didn't have that safety mechanism built into them. And so sometimes the old lights, the LED panels would burn out on them, right? And that could potentially cause a fire because they're getting hot enough to cause a fire. The new lights, like mine, have built-in technology like newer computers to where if it reaches, even gets close to that temperature of like 140, 143 degrees, once it gets close to that temperature, the light shuts itself off. So the light itself can never get hot enough to cause anything to catch fire. I want to repeat that. This light can never get hot enough to catch on fire by itself. Some outside source that would have to catch it on fire. But even then, the only thing that's going to catch on fire, that's even burnable in here, is some of the plastics, like the actual plastics around the wires inside and the plastic fans, because you want to keep it as light as possible. This is a very light light. It's all aluminum. It only weighs like 27 pounds, the whole entire light. So it's pretty damn light pretty light for an LED light compared to like the other brands out there that are like 30 more pounds, like 35, 40 pounds, like really heavy lights. I know because I've gone through all of those. But anyway, awesome light to hang, really, really easy to hang by yourself because of how light it is. But all aluminum. So even if a fire were to happen inside this light, the whole thing is aluminum. And so it acts like a heat sink. It's going to pull that heat away from the fire, and the fire inside is going to go out, and it's not going to spread outside this light. And the light will shut itself off anyways. So even if you were to get the room hot, right, that makes the light get hot, which does what? Turns it off. It turns itself off. Once the room cools down and the light cools down, it'll turn itself back on, given that there's still power going to it. So as long as you still have power going to it, it's fine. Now, anytime you have a grow room, right, you're going to have something like this. You're going to have a power cable. His light needs a power cable. Without a power cable, it can't turn on. A high bay light cannot work without power. Well, guess what this is covered in? Plastic. That's outside the light. So if there were anything to happen inside the grow room, all that kind of stuff can catch fire in your grow room. So basically, this thing does not catch itself on fire. The XL version will not catch itself on fire. It has the exact same technology built into it. And by the way, those are fanless and those are water resistant. I'll talk more about the IP65 rating, how it actually means water resistant and not waterproof. Now the new Samsung Galaxy S7 is waterproof. IP rating of 6.5, or excuse me, IP rating of 6.8. These have IP rating of 6.5 like his light. There's a reason why I chose those. I talk all about that in this video, so stay tuned. Just keep watching the video and you'll see that. But nonetheless, they also have that same mechanism built into them. If the chipboard gets too hot or any part of the light gets too hot, the light shuts itself off and will turn itself back on once it cools down. So they have that safety mechanism built into them. So does this light, and so does the high bay light I just showed you. It looks just like his light, just like the Spectrum King light. Now, one thing he didn't do this time is mention my name, and that's cool. I'm still mentioning his name because he mentioned me very clearly by the details he's given. It's very clear he's talking about me throughout his video, and he's doing it incorrectly. I correct a bunch of one of those arrows, like he talks about 10 degrees. No one uses 10-degree angles. That's ridiculous and dumb. I'm not calling him ridiculous and dumb. I'm saying it would be ridiculous and dumb for anyone to actually use 10-degree angle lenses. No one does that. So I don't. That's a moot point, right? It's a filibuster. It's like he's trying to disinformation. Just throw random information out there that has nothing to do with anything because no one does it, right? It's why even try to do? I just don't understand it. The level of being able to address a situation, with technology is just amazing to me. Like, why even use things that make no sense? It's a non-issue. No one uses 10-degree angle lenses. I don't. Both lights use a 60-degree lens. On top of that is a 90-degree lens. Those lenses, the outer lens of those are a little bit different. They actually go right onto that. Whereas these are just put right on top of the LED light where you can exchange them out. So if you want to take these panels off right here, you could, and it pulls out and you can change those lenses. They just pop right off. Change the lenses for a 120-degree lens, and now the light will be less intense. It won't project as far, and it'll have a slightly wider range to it. But honestly, this light is so powerful because it has 5-watt driven chips rather than 3 watts. So his light uses 3 watts, and my light uses 5 watts. So that's new tech as well. That's why it has the intensity it has. That's why my light actually matches the intensity of a Gavita Pro and has a really big area coverage as well because of the unique lenses that it uses. So there you go. That's in short what I talk about throughout this entire video. But I go more details about all this kind of stuff. So keep on watching and get more details on everything, and then you'll know what is real and what isn't. You'll know what is real information, what is false information, and what is good intelligent information and what is not intelligent information, or at least not as well thought out or something. All right, keep on watching. I forgot. I guess there's the last point I'm going to summarize really quickly, and that's this point here about coverage. So he claims that his light covers a 4x4 area, but his light works like this, like a spotlight, right? And we know how spotlights work. And that's exactly how it looks. Look at it. It looks like a big fat spotlight. That's what high bay lights are. They're big spotlights. Now they have a slightly bigger range in that center right there than my spotlight does, but basically it's the same idea. That is, the most intensity is coming from the center, and then it drastically drops as it goes out towards the edges. So yeah, it might look like it's covering 4x4, but take measurements of the edges, which he hasn't done. Why? Because it's going to be very, very low as it goes out toward the edges. It's not going to be able to cover that 4x4 with any intensity on the edges. It's all going to be toward the center. The other point I want to make is that my light was designed to work like a Gavita Pro, 1,000 watt double-ended bulb, which is best used on a 6-foot light mover, going back and forth, covering a full 8. This is 8 here. This whole thing right here is 12, but these two squares are both 4x4 inches, which each inch is represented to a foot in real life. And so this is 4 by 8 feet, which is 32 square feet that it covers. That means there's 32 squares foot inside here that covers. That's more than 5 by 5. 5 by 5 is only, what, 25? So a quick point here, the price point. So he's claiming that it's more expensive for my lights. No, it's not. My light, to cover a 4 by 8 area, only takes 1 light. To cover a 4 by 12 area, only takes 2 lights on light movers because they work like a 1,000 watt Gavita bulb. They're just as intense as them, better par, and they are super better spectrum. So you're getting all that intensity at the light, the spectrum the plants actually need to grow. So anyway, you have 1 light on a 6-foot light mover covering 8 by 4, and if you want to do 12, it'll move the light mover all here to the edge. So you have the plant covering 6 by 4, and other light covering 6 by 4. Now you got super intensity all the way across even to the edges at only 2 lights, right? With him, he says he needs 1 light for each square, right? So for each 4 by 4 area, you need 1 of his lights. So to cover 8 by 4, you need 2 lights. To cover a 4 by 12, you need 3 of his lights. Also, his lights are priced at $1,350. To my knowledge, that does not include shipping. My price is $900, which includes shipping within the United States, right? So, that's awesome, free shipping. How much did they pay shipping for his? It's a heavy light, I'll tell you that much. Heavy light, big huge heat sink on it. So yeah, there you go. So costs way more effective this way. 1 light covers 8 by 4 easily on a light mover. The light mover itself, if you buy light rail like I use, they last forever. I've had one that's been going now for 4 years straight. I've been using it for 2 years. The person before me used it for 2 years, and it's still going. I have another one I bought about a year ago. It's been going for that entire time, nonstop, 18 hours a day, and still going strong. And they work awesome. They last a long time. And if you ever have to replace anything, it's just a motor and it's inexpensive. So the whole entire thing, if you buy a light rail mover for the whole entire kit, is like, I think, $200. You can buy it for cheaper than that too. There's other brands as well. I just like light rail because, you know, it's the one I used first, and it lasts a long ass time, and so I like the brand, and it lasts. So yeah. But you can also buy smaller ones too, and the 6-foot one, you can break it up because it comes in 2 pieces, so you can break it up into 3 feet by 3 feet. So you can just use half of it and make it at 3 feet. 3 feet will cover 4x4 easily because it goes all the way to the edge, and then cut and go over goes the edge a little bit, and so it still covers that 4x4 area with the 3 foot. You can also buy a 4-foot light mover if you really wanted to, but 3 feet would probably fit in easier, and it's still going to cover all the area. So, what's more expensive? His lights. What's more effective? My light. What has way more par reading? My light. What has way more intensity? My light. At 2 feet away, 1400 par, 97,000 lux. You know, that's like a Gavita Pro right there. Bam. And because it's on a light mover, you can easily get it within 2 feet of your plants. You can even get it with like the Gavita, probably up to right around the 18-inch mark because it's on a light mover. And it hits all the angles. Anyway, I go in more detail about this in part 2, but cheaper, my light. Covers more area, my light. His light, spotlight. Edges, going to be very, very weak. All right. Right, so a 4x8 is much bigger than a 5x5, and you cover all that with one light. My light is made to work like the Gavita. You simply take the exact same setup that I've been growing with for years. You replace the Gavita with the Perfect Sun 1000, have it be 2 feet away from your plants, and boom, you got the intensity all over. By the way, at 2 feet away from my plants, my light is 1400 par and 97,000 lux. So tons of intensity, and that's all the way around the light. So as it goes to the edge, it only drops down, you know, to maybe at the most, or at the least, I should say, 300 when you get to the very edge here. But when it's going back and forth like this, it's getting all that intensity because it's going all the way to the edge, all the way to the edge. Right now, I know this is a 6-foot light mover, but the light comes all the way out here and hangs. It almost covers. You only have a half a foot left that the edge of the light is not covering. That's fine. That's still at the edge over here. Guess what it is? Because actually it's more powerful. It's at 800 here. At half foot here, it's still like at 500 or so. And so you're still getting like 500 here and 500 here at the very edges. So when the light's going back and forth, and you have it pause and stop at the edges, that way you get the edges. You can just simply set your light rail to, that's what I use as a light rail light mover. Set it to where it stops at for like 15 to 30 seconds on the edges here. That way those get enough light. If you don't have it stop on the edges, you're going to notice your edge buds are not going to be nearly as developed. And so just have it pause for about 15 seconds or 30 seconds, right? That's it. Boom. You can also cover a 4x4 area with it. And if you use a light mover, it'll allow you to grow in shorter areas like that of a 4x4 tent. Just keep watching to see all the details on that. So that's toward the end of the video where I talk about that in more detail. And I talk about all this other kind of stuff in great detail too, and IP rating, a lot of different stuff.